All right. Hey, welcome, folks. Mil Spec Ops Monkey here. This is going to be your SITREP. It is 1/30/2024, and I'm coming to you live here from the Monkey Lounge in the great state of Texas. As we get into the deets of what's going on around the world, we're going to look at our southern border and the standoff between the feds and the state. And then we're going to talk about some of the other really interesting things happening with respect to movements, troop movements, etc. We know there's a massive deployment that just took place, and there's a massive exercise in the middle of Europe. But did we just witness over the weekend a multitude of fighters moving across the drink? That I'm not 100% on, but we're going to look closer at those details to see what exactly, may have gone across and why. So let's get into the mix of things here as we start talking about the current up in terms of military. Remember, this is only military aircraft, and it is it's very active. I will say that. We're sitting at 311, and I've stripped out 66 Tex-2s, 33 T-38s, and 25 EC-45 trainers. Now, the interesting one that gets me is one, we've got 14 H-47 banana copters up. As you can see, a lot of it concentrated in the Northeast, right? That's your first data point. But then let's bundle in and look at the H-60s. Astronomically high, 35 of those. So if I look at just what's on the screen right now, I'm showing 41 aircraft that are rotor wing, should I say. These are going to be, again, banana copters here, and then Blackhawks, H-60s. So why so many? I don't really know. This little section right here may be some training. More than likely it is, but this stuff up over the Northeast is abundant. I mean, that right there is a lot of activity. So what's going on up here? I don't know, but there's a lot of flying. Let's just put it that way. All right. So we'll back those out. And then we're going to get into all of our normal detail stuff. So let's start off over here in the intel side of the house, because it's interesting as we watch so much happening in terms of 90,000 troops. They're going very active in terms of their exercises in Europe. Are we looking at a precursor in the prepositioning of assets for a spring offensive? Well, might just look that way. Sure is an awful big coincidence, given the fact that the deliveries that were paid for in last year's money are probably now and starting to go over to Ukraine. And that would include F-16s by the NATO nations. And then, of course, there are an abundance of things like artillery that was already paid for. Now, do they have new money? Not necessarily. But I'm going to show you something I think is a very interesting data point that's coming out of Zelensky's mouth. Yeah, the private dancer. And it's just, things are getting really, really interesting. I think we have war on the horizon in the not too distant future, both abroad and I think domestically has the potential for something very big to go off, especially here with Texas and the standoff between the feds. Now, let's look at the intel side of the house. Again, Kaliningrad, you expect to see that looking into Belarus. You get down this part where they're going that sideways look. They're looking into, I believe, Serbia more than anything else, and Kosovo, that general area. Then we've got some stuff going on over Italy, but then notice this over Israel. That's a lot of flying, a lot of intel looking at what's going on the ground. You expect it. There's things going on there, but I will tell you, every indication shows that Israel is about to start heading up north into Lebanon. All right. Okay. Now, again, you've got some strange things that happen right there along the Nevada, California border, and then down south of Tucson. That's kind of the intel community. You expect to see that. And then, of course, Homeland Security. Take a look at what these guys are up to off the coastline, Southern California, down into Baja. Again, normal stuff. A little bit up there near Washington State, Detroit, a little north into Michigan. and then down kind of strange into Louisiana, et cetera. But then notice the stuff along the normal border where you would think, hey, we're being invaded, there'd be a lot of activity. Nothing. And the feds don't care, right? This is an open border. They believe the border is closed. Yeah, let me tell you, not happening. All right, let's look at R135s. Again, I've talked about some things going on up in Montana, that general area. The fact that they're looking, it's not unusual for them to do that. I think that over Texas and that area is training. The one in Montana, don't really know. It is side looking, so they could be looking all the way as far north as Canada from there. Kind of crazy to think they can do that. Notice the transition, one parking over here into the UK. And then the usual suspects all the way up from St. Petersburg, Russia, down to the Belarus and the Ukrainian border. And then this area right here, 100% fact, there are R135 flights over the Red Sea and over that general area. They are wiping those flights. That's why we don't see them, okay? All right, now look at the H-47s because, again, litmus kind of tells you exactly what's going on. These are the ones we want to watch closely because when these guys start to get very active, then you know there's some deployments happening, right? So this right now, you just notice the one to the far northern corner of Poland, right? Very active in southern England over into Europe near Netherlands and Belgium, et cetera, Germany, right? And then some very long transitions in and out of Dallas-Fort Worth area and then over across into Tennessee. It looks like Clarksville, right? You can see some things happening there. All right. And then the little flurry of things down south. So it looks like Oklahoma to Tennessee was the big transition. Stuff going on in Fort Worth, things happening. Look at the movements between Las Vegas all the way down to Tucson, very active. And then some stuff up there near Montana, right? That neck of the woods up in Washington State. Again, banana copters, we just keep an eye on them, right? It's a data point for you. Now, let's look at a couple of things here. I'm going to pop over to, well, first we will go look at the air refuelers the last couple of days because I think this is interesting. Someone posted this transition flight out of Southern California. It looked like March Air Force Base, Air Reserve Base. Notice the stuff, activity out over the water, right? Good indicator. You got some fighters, some surveillance flights down there. Again, down to the southern Texas border. Fighters, not Homeland Security. Big difference. Stuff down into Florida. Just kind of dispatched across the United States. But see these long trains running all the way across? All right. Now, typically when we see that, that would indicate they're moving some fighters across because you need a lot of air refuelers to get squadrons over. There's nothing in the news cycle talking about deployments over the weekend headed to Europe for this exercise. Notice where they land, in England, right? I see some stuff that goes down into Italy, and I see some refueling over Europe, et cetera. But broadly, you can see that coming out of kind of Portugal, Spain area, and then headed over to kind of the Middle East over the Persian Gulf, okay? That would also indicate that they're moving something a long distance. Now, here's the thing that the big takeaway. Notice they're landing in England, all right? Now, I'm going to go back over here to this side of it. We're going to look at, these are the flights that were captured. Great job, by the way, somebody catching these headed across the drink. It's certainly, you know, you look at it and you go, ooh, that doesn't look very good. No, it really doesn't. But notice the call signs on all of these. The reach, right? So that means they're multi-role, multi-purpose. Remember, KC-135s can also carry cargo, all right? And so they're not just refuelers, but they also can be cargo aircraft. Now, if you look at the altitudes, anywhere from 34,000 up to, I think, 38,000 feet. Okay, that's a little high, especially over the swim lanes for air refueling in the United States coming out of March. So if they were doing fighter refueling, they would have been at a lower altitude, probably around 25,000, because that is That is the lanes that are designated for air refueling across the United States. Now, when you get over across to the ocean side of the house, heading across the drink, there are no real swim lanes other than aviation traffic in general, right? You would have to worry about commercial stuff being in your flight lane. Now, those are usually in that same area, around 33 to 36,000 feet, okay, coming across the drink. Sometimes you'll see them up around 40. But your fighter stuff, usually down around 25,000, that's where they're going to do the refueling. But if you look at the weather over that general area, let me get over here and take a look at this, okay. This right here has kind of been in the region since probably Friday. It's just kind of hung out across here. Now, this is at a flight level of 330, which is 36,000 feet. Okay, this is where they flew across. So if they were coming across this at the flight level that I just showed you, they would have been bouncing all over the place because this is pretty heavy turbulence, right? The brighter colors in here where it gets a little more, the red kind of coming through, the oranges, that's really heavy turbulence. So at that flight level, even up to, say, 36,000 feet, it would have been a pretty bumpy flight all the way across. The only way it would not have been is, I'll show you, I'll back it up 8 hours, right? And that gets you just, to the wee hours of the morning. But this has been there for a while because Chimp Dude just went across the drink in recent days, like late last week, and it was the same way. As he was headed over to Italy for a little break. But this, they could have tried to stay to the north of that and had some smooth air, which would have been ideal for refueling if they were bringing them over. Now, there's some other stories about nukes being moved. We'll look at that as well into the UK, and that seemed to be very imminent in terms of that move. The setup and everything that's in play. They may have been bringing troops. They could have been bringing equipment and supplies over to do that move. They could have been carrying stuff over. More than likely, the bombers would have been carrying, although that may be a breach. Yeah, I don't think bombers can carry nukes over, even for transport. They'd have to go on something that was not a bomber, I think, because I think it's considered an act of war for them to break ground with nukes on it. Now, I know all the treaties have gone by the wayside here recently, but I still think it's considered an act of war to break ground with nukes on it, okay? So that brings us to, more than likely, fighters. Why would you bring fighters into England unless you're pre-positioning them for delivery to Ukraine? Or you are bringing them over because you are going to have... which would be, if you're putting them in there for Ukraine, that means there is some plans for an air campaign at a minimum in Ukraine as the war continues to go on and on and on, okay? So, again, they could be part of this exercise. They could be, if they're even there, may not be anything. They could have just been tankers pumping over there to support the exercise. But nonetheless, I find it very interesting that they went into England and that we see a lot of, 90,000 troops, big exercise going on that is going to go for months, right? Again, it's just you're getting ready for war, right? And so, okay, so back over to this aspect of it as we get into those fighters, right? We talked about this big transition over. Now, could it have been for something else, right? If it's not a massive fighter deployment, because with that amount of tankers, you would be bringing over squadrons upon squadrons. All right. So it would have been a very big move of fighters over there. Okay. There's that aspect of it. Now, we are looking at the NOTAMS, and I will tell you the other thing that catches my eye, other than we've got some, looks to be missile launch boxes, very dominant out here. Oh, sorry, prominent, not dominant, but prominent. This one is more than likely Starlink kind of stuff, but let me just pop on it and see. That's Auckland, New Zealand, tempo danger area. Okay. And don't see anything. Space debris return. All right. So you got some fallout coming in this general area. That's always nice. I can imagine being in New Zealand, you're probably looking at that thinking, oh, great. All right. But this is a missile box. It looks like the Russians are doing some stuff. And that right here, even that box, is skinny as it is. Multiple U.S. military aircraft will be conducting something in that general area. So mission name, pickleball. All right. So, okay. So we got a little pickleball going out there in the general area. Now, if you think we're going to do something about China making a move on Taiwan when that comes up, we're not going to do anything. I'll be shocked. Not unless you have somebody else in office other than the left. All right. Okay. So notice this, all of this. I don't know. I mean, a lot of TFR boxes down here off of Florida. You almost go, what is going on down here? There's a lot of stuff happening in Florida right now. A lot of box activations, etc. So let me do this. This kind of thins it out a little. Flashbang's on the move today. Looks like he's headed down south into Florida, probably trying to go to some of the senior centers down here in Florida, do some campaigning as he leaves this senior living center up here. And it looks like Air Force One is actually airborne right now, headed that direction. So that said, that's where he's headed. If you're on the West Coast, get ready. You got a lot of slop coming your way. So pay attention to that. Let's move on to this news. This is, I think, very important. Haven't done this since 2008 was the last time that the U.S. actually put nukes into the UK. But it says here that U.S. is to station nuclear weapons in the UK amid growing Russian threats. And so we've heard the Brits talk about the fact that they are, they're very concerned. They don't have the range nor depth or capacity to jump into a large, full-scale war with Russia. They've said it. They're talking about actually bringing the draft back. That's been a hot minute since they've done that. But it says here the U.S. is planning to station nuclear weapons in the UK in response to growing threats from Russia. In an undisclosed number, they're going to put these B-61-12 gravity bombs, which are 3 times as powerful as the bomb in Hiroshima, which was a 10-kiloton bomb, I believe. So these are 30-kiloton bombs. I'm guessing that's what they're saying. But nonetheless, they're gravity bombs. That means you have to put them on an aircraft to get them to their destination, just like Japan and Hiroshima. All right. These aren't nukes that are being launched from rockets. All right. So now the interesting thing is that they're talking about immediate, it says they will be part of an anticipated nuclear mission to take place imminently. All right. So that's happening now. That could be why we see the KC 135s flying over as Reach aircraft. Okay. So anyway, yeah, there's nobody standing down on any level for things to go hot. Like, war looks to be very imminent. And I don't think we've ever been at this level, even during the Cold War. Maybe during the Cuban Missile Crisis, we experienced something where people thought, my God, we're about to go to war. We're not to that level yet, because that got pretty close. But when it pops off, this is going to get really interesting very quickly. All right, check this out. Leaked military docs reveal the worst case scenario of the Russian-Ukraine war. These things just came out. This was just last week. It says the leaked German military documents have outlined the potential worst case scenarios for the ongoing war in Ukraine. It says highly classified documents obtained by a German newspaper. So what does that tell you right there? You got highly classified documents that were leaked to a German newspaper. Yeah. That's you can go to jail for that. That's treason. Yeah, pretty bad. But evidently, they're just going to print whatever is given to them and not ask the questions. But around 200,000 new Russian recruits are expected to mobilize to support Moscow's hybrid warfare against the Baltic states. And so, nonetheless, this just came out. They're basically saying, hey, look, it's very likely that Russia is going to take Ukraine out here very soon, right? And that the war will then turn to NATO and not just Ukraine, because everybody's going to be all in, all right? Okay, there's that aspect. Let's move on. This is Flashbang scheduled today. It looks like he's already departed down to Palm Beach, Florida. Yeah. All right. Anyway, that's where he's headed today. I don't really care. Okay. Countries follow U.S.'s lead in suspending the UNRWA funds. Several countries follow U.S. lead, announced pause in funding of this deeply concerning report. It's all based on this after the October 7th massacre. But the interesting thing is, look at the countries. On Saturday, Britain, Finland, Canada, Australia announced their decision to follow the U.S.'s lead. So the U.S. has gone in and paused the funding for this effort because they have found out that the humanitarian aid to the people in Gaza is basically being handled by Hamas. Shocker. Nonetheless, they've paused it. Now, on the heels of that pause, this I find interesting. Biden appoints a former Palestinian UNRWA official as director of the NSC intelligence. So you just pause it because you realize that they were tied very heavily to Hamas, and then you turn around and you appoint somebody. Believe me, they have not broken all of their connections with Hamas or anybody else over in Gaza or Palestine. And now you take this Palestinian American, because they've been given citizenship, basically, and put them in charge of the NSC intelligence service. Absolutely shocking. But we just seem to double down on stupidity these days, don't we? Okay, Texas is prepared if Biden federalizes state National Guard. Now, that is the talk, right? And that's what's being called upon. Rather than Biden coming down here and fighting against us, he's just going to federalize the Texas Guard, right? Now, I don't know that that'll actually go to plan, but that is being talked about. And I think the United States is actually, we're about ready to see some action between the feds and the Texas government. So buckle up, because this is going to get really interesting, all right? Now, if you want to look at the flights today, notice you got several headed down from Bogota, Colombia, coming out of Alexandria. Those may be deportations, but the rest of these are headed into the interior. And if we look at the SWIFT flights over the last 5 days, I'm going to point out the amount of flights that are coming out of Central America to San Antonio. More than likely, we're bringing them in, not taking them out. And then, of course, Los Angeles, Tucson is another big one, all the way up here into the Seattle, Washington area, as you can see. Notice the ones headed into Calgary, etc., into Canada. So Canada is starting to get our illegals, right? Amazing. And that guy's not, Trudeau's not going to do anything about that, right? He's like, come on, bring him on and just give me the money to go with it, right? Because that's what it's all about. All right. You can see same stuff as always, Chicago, Detroit, all the other normal things that they continue to pump in. All right. Moving on. Washington approves the sale of F-16 warplanes to Turkey. Yeah, that came with Turkey's agreement to let Sweden into NATO. And it's a $23 billion deal of F-16s, right? Not F-35s. Down here, notice here, it says, as required by law, the State Department notified Congress of the agreement, as well as a separate $8.6 billion sale of 40 F-35s to Greece. Now, keep in mind, Turkey and Greece, they are constantly clashing. Turkey wants to bring back the Ottoman Empire, and they are always kind of poking each other, taking shots. And this could be very interesting because we've just given Greece some superior aircraft to Turkey, which Turkey's not going to be happy with that. But nonetheless, it just goes to show you how the United States continues to grease the skids. They basically said, hey, look, if you approve Sweden, then we'll approve your F-16 aircraft. That's what's going on there. All right. Quid pro quo. All right. Look at this. Dover, we got a couple flights just pay attention to. This one's headed to Leipzig. That's a Coletta bird. We got a camper headed into Ramstein. 767-300, probably troops, right? Moving on. This is Ramstein. The big thing is, notice what's coming in. We got a camber flight. But notice you got the Spar 76 that came in. That's a blue and white dignitary. That's going to be somebody like SecDef Austin, right? But it also could be Blinken. There's just no telling who is on here. And then notice it leaves as Spar 71, headed back to, that is Terceira. That is a location where we've got a U.S. military base, and it's a refueling stop before they head across the drink. And then on down, a lot of C-130s headed in and out of that location at Ramstein, sorry. And then Eastern Airlines headed to JFK. That is probably immigrants. Okay. NATO ally responds to rumors of a secret F-16 combat mission into Ukraine. This is becoming very interesting, although there's a lot of people that actually deny it. But if that is the case and it did happen, this is a game changer because that means they're using U.S. weaponry from an airborne perspective. And that means that, well, let's just see. You got a group of 14 countries that have already promised the Ukraine that they would get F-16s. So looks like Denmark's donating 19 F-16s, and then we've got a bunch. So anyway, these are very old F-16s, by the way. They're not the new modern ones. They're kind of dated old airframes. So most of them are just getting rid of them because they're going to get F-35s. So they're just phasing them out, and they're going to give them the old used equipment. But nonetheless, this could get really interesting if you start to add the dynamic of aircraft into the region. All right. Now, here we go. Russia, war is close. This comes out of the Finland presidential candidate. They are, of course, it's a lot of probably fear-mongering that's going on over there. Anytime you start running into presidential elections, there's a lot of chatter and a lot of things that go on. Nonetheless, this guy leaked that it is close. We've seen leaked documents from Germany. We see a very large exercise taking place. Everything is leading and pointing to a major large-scale war with Russia. All right. 39 million meant for ammo stolen by Ukrainian officials. So you've got, again, the reason Ukraine is not allowed into NATO is because they're the most corrupt country in the world. So this right here, 39 million that has been stolen, not a shocker. Let's go over here and look at this headline as we get into the deets. But read this one. Zelensky's now saying, hey, U.S. money's not going to Ukraine. It's actually benefiting American interest. So are they laundering it? What's going on here? If it's not going to them, we see the checks being written. We see them approving through a Congress. But all of a sudden, you've got people saying, hey, we're not getting that money. What does that tell you? Right? And then you've got this $39 million. Hey, on top of that, we see this dude driving around in a nice $74 million yacht. All right. You don't get that doing, the dance cycle. I don't know what show this is. Ukrainians Got Moves or something, but you don't make $74 million doing this. Okay. You just don't. It's, this guy is, like I said, clown. Yeah, I can't even get those images out of my brain. Ugh. All right, moving on. Camber flights, just notice we've got one that looks to be currently came out of what looks to be RZE Poland. Or sorry, no, that's Leipzig. Okay. And Poland's over here. That was my bad. But anyway, Leipzig headed down south. Where it's going, I don't really know. It's at 37,000 feet and level, 619 miles an hour as it cruises over Egypt. Looks to be headed down into maybe Saudi, maybe Riyadh, all right? And then this is the Brits, and just notice they are down here in the Middle East, and then also look to be headed into, where? I don't know where that's headed. India's here, so I don't know. Okay. Just noticed we have several other. You've got the one coming out of Florida. Let me see if that's on there. Yeah, just getting airborne out of Patrick Air Force Base or Patrick Space Force Base. All right. That's interesting. Okay. Okay, Omni, just one coming out of Japan into Seattle. That may come into play later. Western Global looks to be coming out of what's that? Chicago up to Anchorage. That's a 747, probably headed over to get some more artillery. And then this is going to be Doha. Now, if you're not familiar with this base, I'm just looking at it because notice we got a Canberra arrival 747 coming, or actually was on ground. It's leaving. Got the Brits coming in. But if you're not familiar with that base, it is a massively long runway. I mean, it is at least 12,000 feet, maybe longer. So you can land a lot of equipment. There's a lot of firepower here at this location, and U.S. base predominantly in this location. But yeah, we put a lot of things in and out of the region from that location. All right. Now, check this out. Drone attack in Jordan kills 3 American troops. And so will anything happen from there? This, if you're not familiar with this base, referred to as Tower 22, it used to be a location that housed this. It actually was an ISIS base originally. And they had a bunch, like almost 100,000 people living there at its height. And it's right on the border in Jordan, close to, like 6 miles away from Iraq, and it is it's a spot that we have taken up. Now, what's interesting about this is the Jordanians actually denied the base even existed, and now all of a sudden it just got hit, which puts the U.S. and the Jordanian government in a very bad light because now they've been caught up, lying about it. So, nonetheless, this is where the 3 were killed, 34 injured. Will the United States do anything about it? Probably not. But time will tell. They should, 100%. Could that be why we have a bunch of fighters that just popped across the drink? Maybe, if they were actually fighters. Interesting times for sure. So, all right, listen, that's going to do it for our SITREP today. I hope you guys have a fantastic rest of your day and your evening. If you're in the premiere, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you on Thursday with the next one. That's it. Stay frosty. Keep that powder dry. God bless. Monkey out. Thanks for watching, folks. You can check out the latest gear and products by selecting the QR code on your screen now or go to monkeyworksus.com.